Hi, today we're going to talk about 5 things I've learned from my own personal growth work. There's so much conflicting messaging out there about what to do to grow, how to grow, do we even need to grow? Is growth even real? We are who we are. Can we actually change? There's just so much conflicting stuff out there. It can sometimes be hard to know how to sift through it, and we can go down some massive rabbit holes that don't actually make much of a difference. And I'd like to begin today by saying, if you're here live, let me know. Drop a live in the comments so I can see that. And I'd love to know who's here with me. And if you're watching the replay, let me know that too, because I just love to know that you saw the video and especially what has landed with you from it. If we haven't met before, I'm Marie Elizabeth Molly, and I'm a relationship alchemist, which means that I work with people on how they show up in their relationships in such a way that they get to have more of what they want. The relationships get deeper, more loving, more real, more clear. And in this way, the relationships that they have nourishing themselves in their lives also contributes to their professional success if they are working, because they're showing up more magnetic in them. Now, if you'd like to get access to the show notes, drop the word notes in the comments and I'll get that to you. And I highly suggest that you take my relationship alchemy assessment. It's a really quick assessment. It takes about 4 or 5 minutes, and it will give you a quick snapshot of what's working great, where your relationships are working well, and where you need to place your attention to improve. So just drop the word either partnered or single in the comments, or you can message me if that's private information that you don't want to share publicly. You can message me partnered or single, and I'll make sure you get the right link to take the assessment, because that's really a great place to start. All right, now I'd love to know who's here watching. So if you're here live, please drop in the chat. Say hi, I'm here. Hello. I'd love to know. And again, today we're going to talk about what I've learned from my own personal growth work, because I want to help you save some time and stay on track with what actually makes a difference. I just had a thought flash, and I'm seeing it flashed so quick that it went right out. So let me just see if I can get that back. Oh, okay, it's gone. So the reason why I'm talking about this topic is I've been doing one form or another of personal growth work for over 30 years. And, it really begins for us often, this idea that we need to change something or that we need to grow because we feel like something's wrong with us. Is that true for you? I know that that was true for me. I felt like I wasn't okay the way that I was, and I needed to learn how to be better. And that's really where the impulse to grow or to do personal growth kind of stuff came from at first. And whatever gets you on the path gets you on the path. Like, there's no judgment on what gets you interested in your own growth and growing beyond the circumstances that you grew up in. What gets you on the path gets you on the path. However, the first thing I learned is that change doesn't happen in an atmosphere of shame. So if you are wanting to pursue personal growth because you feel something's wrong with you the way you are, and you're trying to become someone better, it can tend to make it harder to proceed. It can tend to make it harder to grow because you're trying to move away from your trauma, from who you see yourself to be in the current iteration. And anytime we're trying to get away from something, we're locked into a relationship with it. So when you're trying to get away from the self that you're not in approval of, you're staying locked in with that self that you're not in approval was, because you're trying to get away from it. So consider, the first thing is to remember that change doesn't happen in an atmosphere of shame. So maybe what the first thing you need to do is to confront your shame. That's where you start. How do you work with yourself in order to not have shame about yourself and have that be the driver? One of my teachers, Michael Bernard Beckwith, always says, pain pushes until the vision pulls. So again, no judgment if pain is the reason why you're wanting to make a change in your life. However, that will only take you so far. And at some point, you need to turn your attention away from the pain and look toward the vision of what you're wanting to create with your life, who you're wanting to be, how you're wanting to show up, where you're wanting to go, and let that vision pull you forward, because that's going to get you much further than staying locked in with trying to get out of pain. The second thing I've learned is that acceptance is the root of being able to make new choices. So it's related to the first one. And the key is truly to come to an acceptance. And I don't mean like a lip service acceptance, like, oh yes, everything's happening for me, but I really hate it. It's like everything is happening for you. That's actually true. But until you can say that for real, and actually name how it's happening for you, it's still a Band-Aid. Carl Jung said, we can't change anything unless we accept it. So this second thing I've learned is that we can't change anything unless we accept it. Why? Because of what I said in the first thing. If we haven't accepted it, then we're going to constantly be living in reaction to it, and therefore still locked into it. The only time you actually change and release something is when you're no longer locked in with it, because you're not in reaction, because you're looking at where you want to go, who you want to be, how you want to show up, what serves you and your loved ones best. When you have your attention on that and you've accepted the past, you can go so much further and create actual change. How's this landing so far? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments. And I'm going to move on to the third thing that I've learned as I wait for folks to drop comments that I can read. The third thing that I've learned is that the ego will grab at anything to prop itself up and feel superior. And feeling inferior is another form of, it's just the other side of the coin of superiority. So you don't get a pass by feeling like shit about yourself. You don't get a pass for feeling unworthy. It's the same dynamic. Whether you feel unworthy or whether you feel better than other people, you're locked in this one up, one down dynamic, which is not the thing, is not where you want to go. So here, I'm going to tell a story. So like when you're doing personal growth, it's very common to have a stage where you start to feel better than other people who aren't doing the work. Have you ever heard yourself think or say, oh, well, I'm doing the work because, and so da. Or, oh yeah, I was in a relationship with this person, but they just weren't doing the work. Well, that's a sign that your ego has co-opted your growth. Happens to all of us. It happened for me in a massive way in the early to mid 2000s, after I had a pretty profound awakening in 1999, 2000. And my ego came in really quickly and co-opted that within a couple of years. Maybe by 2003, 2004, my ego had constructed this new identity of a wise and woke, awake person. But I was hella judgy because my ego had stepped in and co-opted that growth. And here's the thing, if you're really growing, you can tell that you're really growing because you become more accepting of other people where they're at, and not in the sort of, oh, bless their heart, kind of condescending way of being with people where they're at, but actually having compassion and understanding and space for people to be exactly where they are. Do you have to stay in relationship with somebody who is not a good fit, who is not doing their part to show up in the relationship in a way that's aligned for both of you? No, you don't have to stay in relationship with that person, but you also don't have to judge them or make yourself superior because you think you're doing the work and they're not. Again, this is not something to beat yourself up over, but it is something to notice and pay attention to, because 9 times out of 10, as we grow, our egos will grasp onto any piece of awakening or any piece of awareness that we've gotten or any piece of liberation that we've gotten, and roll it up into a new identity of a spiritually or personal growthy superior person. So that's number 3. Number 4 is that growth actually happens in a spiral. There isn't a destination where, like, oh, I'm grown, I'm good, and you're never going to get triggered again, and you're never going to say something nasty to somebody again, and you're never going to mess up. That's not actually how growth works. It works as a spiral, and you will come across the same issues again and again and again, even the ones that you think you've handled, that you think you're done with, that you've said, oh, I'm done with that, I've healed that, I'm over that, it's behind me. And then your nervous system gets into a new situation and that triggers it in some way, and boom, there it is again, that old pattern. Why? Because you are getting the opportunity to release that pattern, to acknowledge and integrate and work with that pattern at a new level, at a new rung of the spiral, as I like to call it. So it doesn't mean that just because some old thing came up again, that like your growth hasn't been complete, or you messed up in some way, or you're doing it wrong. What it means is you have gotten to the place on the spiral where that particular frequency lives, and you have another opportunity to deepen your liberation from it, your relationship to it. We never, people talk about killing the ego. I don't actually agree with that terminology. I don't think we kill it. I think we loosen our grip on it, and that's how we get free from it. Because we need an ego. You need an ego to drive the car down the road. You need an ego to balance your checkbook. You need an ego to pay your rent on time. Like, that shit doesn't happen in awakening land. There's no concept of time. You need an ego to have a concept of time and show up to your job. However, the grip that the ego has on you could be looser than it currently is. And in this spiral of growth that we're in, we get to interact with the places we get caught by it again and again and again. But our relationship to that catching becomes different. It doesn't last as long. We see it more quickly. We don't go as far down the hole and disappear into an ego trip for as long as we used to before. That's the thing to celebrate. That's the win. It's not a pass fail. Like, you don't fail because you got triggered again. The thing that makes the difference is, how do you respond when that trigger happens? Oh, there it is. Can you be friendly with it? Can you be in acceptance of it? Can you make choices not to make it worse? All those things. So growth happens in a spiral. And in my mind, like to envision the spiral actually going downward. We're getting closer and closer to the core, the essence, the truth of who we are. Because when you conceive of the spiral as going upward, there's a temptation and a danger to fall into the kind of ascendant philosophies that have wreaked havoc on the planet. All the religions that have an ascendant kind of philosophy tend to denigrate the body, denigrate the planet, denigrate being a human in favor of some transcendent realm that we're supposed to try to get to, heaven on earth, as they say. And this is not one of the things I've officially learned that I was going to talk about today, but it is one of the things that I'm going to tell you as part of this spiral concept is I've gotten much more growth out of this idea of the spiral of growth happening so that we can be more immanent, not more transcendent, but that we can be more here. And this leads me into the fifth thing I've learned, which is that the goal of growth isn't perfection. It's presence and awareness. It's kindness, respect. It's levity in the face of shitty circumstances, all of which are made possible by being able to be more present and stay more aware no matter what's going on inside and around you. That, to me, is the goal of growth. Can I show up to life and its shenanigans and its traumas and its wonderful wins and its horrific, wars? Can I show up to that with presence, awareness, an open heart, aplomb, as they say, wit? Can I show up to life with that? Can I love in the midst of difficulty? Can I stay present in the midst of a conflict and not escalate it because I'm trying to be right? That's the goal as I see it. So do you have any questions? If you have any questions, pop them in the chat. If you have a reflection or a comment, I'd love to hear it. Pop it in the chat. You're also welcome to pop things in the chat after the fact. If you're watching the replay, please let me know how it's landing with you. I would love to know. And I'm just going to hang for a second here to see if anyone wants to post any comments or any questions. All right, looks like not today. So that's cool. You can do it later. You're also welcome to message me. So I'm going to recap. So today we are talking about the 5 things I learned from my own personal growth work, because there's so many conflicting paths out there and ways of growing, and it can really easily get confusing and hard to know which way to go. So the first thing I've learned is that change doesn't happen in an atmosphere of shame. If you are pushing yourself to grow because you feel like something's wrong with you and you're bad and unworthy the way you are, that's the thing to address, is that feeling of unworthiness, that feeling of needing to change to be acceptable. The second thing I've learned is that acceptance is the root of being able to choose differently. As Carl Jung said, we can't change anything unless we accept it. So again, that needs to be the focus. How do you come into a real acceptance of who and where you are now so that you can loosen the grip and begin to make new choices that bring you where you want to go? The third is that the ego will grasp at anything to prop itself up, especially any kind of personal or spiritual growth that you've done that's been successful, it will grab onto it and use it as a way to feel superior, for you to feel superior to others. Watch out for saying about other people, oh, they're not doing the work. We don't know what anyone else's work is to do. All we can know is our own work. Keep your eyes on your own street. The fourth is that growth happens in a spiral. And I like to think of it as a downward spiral, so that you become more and more true to the core, the essence, the real self that exists deep within you. You're going to pass through the same issues over and over and over again as you go deeper in the spiral, but you're going to be in a new relationship with those issues. You won't get stuck as long. You'll see it more quickly. Sometimes you'll even be able to catch it before it happens and adjust. And the reason why I like to conceive of the spiral as something going deeper and deeper inward is because we are meant to be in our bodies on the planet. It's not about transcending and somehow not having to be human. We can be divine and human at the same time. We just tend to want to forget the human part because it's a pain. And the fifth is that the goal isn't perfection. The goal of any growth you pursue isn't perfection. It's presence and awareness. It's the ability to meet whatever life throws at us with spaciousness, presence, awareness, compassion, an open heart, wit, levity, even sometimes. That presence and awareness are really the thing to aim for, more than perfection, because there's no such thing. Again, I'm Marie Elizabeth Mali, and I help people get more of what they want in their relationships by becoming more present and clear and skillful in them. And you are invited to grab my assessment and get a sense of what's working great in how you relate and where you need to put some attention to gain more skill and more presence and more awareness. And so to receive the link for my assessment, drop the word partnered or single in the comments, or message me. If that feels too private to divulge, go ahead and message me and I'll get you that link. I'll see you again next week. And until then, remember that a great relationship starts with you.